Ferrari questions their development as they keep losing ground to rivals. More drama at Red Bull as Max speaks out, and Daniel is given a timeline on his future for next season. Do consider subscribing. Let's get straight into the latest F1 news. Carlos Sainz Jr. has admitted that Scuderia Ferrari is not at the level of competition like Red Bull or McLaren, which has made it challenging to find the pace necessary to perform well in qualifying. Speaking to media, Sainz reiterated the same sentiment he shared in Barcelona, that Ferrari simply isn't able to compete at the front of the grid on fast tracks like Austria. Ferrari drivers Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz will start the Austrian Grand Prix in 4th and 6th, respectively. Speaking to media including planetf1.com, after qualifying for the 2024 Austrian Grand Prix, Sainz didn't hold back. He was asked if Leclerc's win at Monaco means that the team is surprised by its current performance, something that Sainz denied. "I think Monaco was always an outlier," he stated, before elaborating further on why that is the case. "I was coming from tough weekends in Suzuka and China, and I knew that in these high downforce, long corner tracks, more normal tracks, that we are still not at the level we want to be, at the level of Red Bull and McLaren. On top of that, you have the fact that Mercedes has done very good step, and suddenly it looks like it's a tricky situation," Sainz said. "We've done our steps, we improved the car, it's just that the others are improving them very well, and obviously it's a tight race at the top." In Barcelona, Sainz spoke in depth about the big problem still plaguing the Ferrari: bouncing. On high-speed corners, the Ferrari has a tendency to porpoise up and down, making it difficult for its drivers to extract the maximum from the machine. After qualifying for Austria, Sainz elaborated on the issue, noting that Ferrari's recent updates have made the car faster, but also a bit more on edge, making it tricky to put together a fast lap. "Without going into too much detail, I think it's a combination of we're not great in high-speed corners, and at the same time we are bouncing, which makes our high speed exaggeratedly slow. Here in turn 7 or turn 9, we get a tenth from Max in each of the corners, and it's very difficult to crawl that back the rest of the track because we are almost equal in the slow speed. We're working already back at home to try and understand this new package and the bouncing that we have with it, and how we can improve for Silverstone." Martin Brundle believes the petulant feud between Jos Verstappen and Christian Horner is so unfair on Max Verstappen as the Red Bull star targets a 4th consecutive title in F1 2024. Verstappen will be aiming to claim his 52nd victory in the last 77 races in Sunday's Austrian Grand Prix, having set pole position for Red Bull's home race in Spielberg. The 3-time world champion currently holds a 71-point lead over the McLaren driver Lando Norris in the drivers' standings, but his latest title defense has played out against a tense backdrop at Red Bull between his father and Horner. After an investigation into Horner's conduct was dismissed in February, Verstappen Sr. publicly called for the Red Bull boss to resign in the aftermath of the season-opening Bahrain Grand Prix, accusing Horner of playing the victim when he is the one causing the problems. Although the situation had appeared to have calmed over recent months, tensions were reignited in Austria after Verstappen Sr. withdrew from a Legends Parade at the Red Bull Ring, having been scheduled to drive Red Bull's title-winning 2012 car. PlanetF1.com understands that Verstappen's withdrawal came after Horner had aired reservations over the demo run, with a block on the publication of photographs and video footage of the demo run thought to have been requested. Mr. Verstappen went on to tell Dutch publication De Telegraaf that he is completely finished with Horner, describing the team principal's actions as childish and likening the Red Bull team to a playground. Appearing in front of media including PlanetF1.com and Friday's FIA press conference in Austria, Horner responded, "I've never had an issue with any of our drivers' fathers in the past, and whatever Jos's issues are, I've really got nothing to comment on." Asked for his view on the situation after winning the sprint race on Saturday, Verstappen Jr. described it as not nice and claimed this scenario could have been avoided. Appearing on Sky F1's coverage of qualifying at the Red Bull Ring, Brundle remarked that the standoff between the Red Bull team principal and the star driver's father seems petulant and unnecessary, and said it is so unfair on Verstappen as the 26-year-old goes in search of an 8th win of the F1 2024 season. Brundle said, "I can't even believe we're having to talk about it, but I think it is significant in a way. Blood's thicker than water. Max will always support his dad and other key people that have been around him for a very long time. It just seems petulant and unnecessary. And I think it's so unfair on Max, actually, to make him have to answer questions like that when he's trying to focus on 2 races this weekend. They've had so much success together. Every point, every podium, every victory, every world championship Max has had is with Red Bull. The money they've collected because the kid's a genius in a racing car. He's earned all of those and all of that money. Why do they have to spoil it with such petulant stuff? Brundle's latest comments come after he cast fresh doubt over the future of Verstappen, who has been heavily linked with a move to Mercedes to replace 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton for F1 2025. Verstappen, whose current Red Bull contract is scheduled to run until the end of the F1 2028 season, hinted that he will remain with the Milton Keynes-based team next season while appearing in Thursday's drivers' press conference in Styria. However, Brundle is convinced that something's up, and pointed to a potential exit clause in Verstappen's contract related to the future of long-serving Red Bull advisor Helmut Marko. Planet F1 revealed earlier this year that Verstappen's contract is believed to contain a clause, potentially inserted into his deal without the knowledge of Horner and other senior members of Red Bull's parent company, allowing him to walk away from the team if Marko, 81, leaves. Put to him that things are clearly sewn up between Verstappen and Red Bull for F1 2025, Brundle replied, "Well, are they? The plot thickens, doesn't it?" It does appear that Mercedes-Benz are hanging around waiting to see what happens with Max Verstappen at Red Bull. Whether that's for 25 or 2026, time will tell. And there is apparently a side letter that is an exit clause with Dr. Helmut Marko, allegedly according to the paddock, should Max want to leave. Christian absolutely says that's not going to happen, and you have to say Max has been pretty consistent on saying, "I've got a long-term contract here, this is where I want to race." And Christian made the point that Max that has achieved every single one of his wins with Red Bull, every podium, every world championship, all 3 of them with Red Bull. They're currently leading this one quite comfortably. Just have a think about that for a minute as to why you'd want to run away from that. But something's up. But it seems as if they're saying he's going nowhere for next year especially. Lewis Hamilton has admitted the Mercedes W15's chances of winning a race in F1 2024 are a little bit further down the road after Max Verstappen's insane pace in Austrian Grand Prix qualifying. Following a muted start to the F1 2024 season, Mercedes have improved considerably over recent weeks with Hamilton and teammate George Russell registering podium finishes in Spain and Canada respectively. The car's flashes of pace has raised hopes that Mercedes could end their extended wait for a race victory, having won just once since the F1 2022 regulations were introduced. Hamilton, who announced earlier this year that he will end his long and successful association with Mercedes at the end of F1 2024 to join Ferrari on a multi-year contract, remains without a win since the penultimate race of the 2021 campaign in Saudi Arabia. That came just 7 days before he was dethroned, in highly controversial circumstances, by Verstappen at the Abu Dhabi season finale. Despite the team's growing confidence, Hamilton could only qualify 5th, 0.598 seconds slower than pole-sitter Verstappen, for Sunday's Austrian GP, with Russell marginally quicker to claim 3rd on the grid. Speaking to media, including PlanetF1.com after the session, Hamilton acknowledged that the significant deficit to Verstappen means Mercedes are not set for an imminent return to winning ways despite the car's improved form. He said, "We just don't have enough downforce, that's all we got." I don't know the answer. Honestly, I don't know the answer. If I could take a piece of downforce and chuck it on the back, I would, but that's not how it goes. We're just going to continue to work on improvement. But the notion of us potentially winning a race this year, when you get a half a second gap like today, makes it a little bit further down the road, but we've got to keep pushing. Hamilton highlighted performance in the high-speed corners as an area where Mercedes are lacking a lot compared to Red Bull, revealing Verstappen is as much as 13 kilometers per hour quicker than the W15 in the faster turns. He added, "We're down a lot in the high speed compared to Max. A lot. It's insane how much faster they are in the high speed. I think they're about 12-13K faster, which is huge." Hamilton's latest qualifying defeat means Russell now leads 9-2 in the Mercedes head-to-head qualifying battle for F1 2024, with Hamilton starting ahead of his teammate just twice in Miami and Barcelona. Lando Norris said he left the door open like an amateur, and ultimately that cost him a potential sprint victory in Austria. Norris, teammate Oscar Piastri, and Max Verstappen were engaged in a thrilling contest at the start of the race, but Norris went from hero to zero when a great lunge was followed by what he called an amateur move. Verstappen stayed in the lead following the start, but did so with both Norris and Piastri close behind, particularly in the 3 DRS zones. In lap 5, Norris made a brave dive bomb into turn 3, a move which gave him the lead, but even with the resulting DRS being in his favor, Verstappen was able to squeeze past going into turn 4. A little bit like I saw at the end, I think once things settle in too much, it's difficult once the tires get too hot to do too much, so I had to make the most of my opportunity, he said of his initial overtake. Then I messed it up and left the door open like an amateur. That move not only allowed Verstappen to pass, but also Piastri, who moved into P2, a position he kept until the checkered flag. But despite the win eluding the team, McLaren came away with the most points as a team, and it was a performance that gave Norris optimism for Sunday's race. It was a good race between us, especially with Max at the beginning. It was good fun, the man currently P2 in the standings said. Probably some things I definitely should have done a bit better in my battle, but I understand that, and the pace of the car was very strong, especially the end of the race. I had a good battle trying to get past Oscar, but just didn't have enough speed with how much you lose in the middle sector. But it was a good load of points for us as McLaren. So a good job to the team and, of course, Max and Oscar for the podium. Some things can be improved, but we're there and we can definitely give them a fight tomorrow. Asked if McLaren could have got the win if they had worked as a team, Norris disagreed and suggested they should be allowed to race. I don't think so, honestly. I think that we're fair to race, and it was just too difficult to get past, but the pace was good, he said. I don't think we had the pace to go with Max. I think he was maybe a little bit too quick for us today, but tomorrow is another day and we'll try again. Fernando Alonso has reiterated his I'm Spanish dig aimed at F1's race stewards, only for Nico Hülkenberg to be penalized for their lap 22 clash at the sprint in Austria. Racing for 14th place at the Red Bull Ring on Saturday, Hülkenberg made an audacious attempt to take the position off Alonso, only to force the Spaniard off the track. Alonso lost 2 positions as Daniel Ricciardo also snuck through and made his thoughts crystal clear. Speaking to the official F1 website, he said, "Nothing really to say, 2 laps from the end and fighting for 16th. It was probably borderline. If I turned in the corner, we would have crashed. But I'm Spanish. This is a sprint weekend and I don't want to be in trouble." Alonso's I'm Spanish comment relates to his Miami GP sprint penalty, where the Aston Martin driver accused F1 stewards of being biased against Spanish drivers after Lewis Hamilton escaped a penalty when they tussled in the Saturday race. This time the stewards did issue a penalty, time and penalty points for Hülkenberg. The Haas driver was hit with a 10-second time penalty, which dropped him to 9th in the official classification, and he was also given 2 penalty points. The stewards' verdict read, "The driver of car 27 attempted an overtake on car 14 into turn 3, but locked up and missed the apex. The car understeered to the very edge of the track, thereby preventing car 14 from turning in and forcing the other driver off track." The penalty points are the only 2 on Hülkenberg's super license, with any driver who amasses 12 over a 12-month rolling period automatically banned for 1 race. Although RB CEO Peter Beyer believes Liam Lawson is ready to step up, he admits it's not just his decision as to whether the reserve driver should replace Daniel Ricciardo. RB have 1 seat available for next year's championship, and it's a straight fight between Ricciardo and Lawson to partner Yuki Tsunoda. Continuing with Ricciardo this season, Red Bull Motorsport advisor Helmut Marko recently admitted they'd done so with the goal of the 8-time Grand Prix winner, making a play for Sergio Perez's Red Bull seat. Ricciardo's struggles put paid to that, prompting Red Bull to announce a new 2-year deal for Perez. As for Ricciardo, the Honey Badger is fighting to continue in Formula One, with Marko hinting his exit may be a done deal as RB's shareholders have made it clear that it is a junior team, and that Red Bull will have to put a young driver in there soon. That would be Liam Lawson. However, according to Beyer, Ricciardo still has time, at least another 4 races, to save his seat as no decision will be made before the summer break, which begins after the Belgian GP. Daniel has been an important part of the team since he joined us last year, Beyer told the media, including PlanetF1.com. He brought lots of new spirit, fresh ideas. He raised the expectations within ourselves. He has been very important in working with Yuki, has been important in helping us with the setup of the car. In terms of performance, and he stated by himself, it wasn't the best of him that we have seen so far. I still believe there are lots of things to come from Daniel. We've seen some glimpses of that in Miami and Montreal, and we know that, simply by monitoring him, he's got the speed. He will have to deliver to be considered for 2025. And all the while, RB have Lawson waiting in the wings, with Bayer confident the New Zealander is ready to step up at any time. He, however, isn't the only one who has a say in the decision, with the Red Bull bosses also having a vote. We're not in a rush, we have a big talent pool, Bayer continued. We have Liam, who is ready to join the team. What we really want to try and achieve is to go quietly into the summer break and then have a discussion. It will be Helmut, it will be Christian Horner, will be Laurent Mekies, myself, and the shareholders might be interested in the final decision. But it will be quiet and without any haste. In the meantime, RB have urged Lawson to have patience with the team amidst rumors Audi could come knocking. Part of our responsibilities is to develop drivers, and Liam did a test for us in January in Imola, Bayer added. Then we have another one planned at the end of July where he will again be in the 22 car. He's a test driver, he's in the sim right now, so he's an extremely valuable and important element to the team. We're just basically asking him for the patience to stick with us until we can take a final decision. The initial race start procedure for the Austrian Grand Prix sprint was aborted, triggering a second formation lap. Lining up for the race start for the sprint on Saturday at the Red Bull Ring, race control made the decision to abort the start procedure and send the cars out for a second formation lap. A message from race control confirmed the start had been aborted due to the position of some photographers at turn 1. While being behind the barriers, it was felt their position was dangerous, resulting in the decision to abort. The FIA has confirmed further details on the incident to planetf1.com, with it being made clear the photographers had not breached an area in which they weren't supposed to be in. Race control had spotted the positioning of the photographers at turn 1 while the cars were lining up on the grid, and it was felt that the positioning could be dangerous due to the possibility of debris intrusion in the event of a multi-car pileup, as witnessed at the Monaco Grand Prix. On that occasion, a collision between Sergio Perez and the two Haas cars resulted in debris going behind a catch fence, striking photographers and resulting in one requiring medical attention for minor cuts and bruises. Fearing the possibility of similar circumstances arising, the race start in Austria was duly aborted to usher the photographers to a safer position, resulting in the second formation lap. For Sunday's race, the decision has been made to prevent the photographers from accessing this particular point behind the barriers for the first 2 laps of the race, but allowing them access as the race settles down. Max Verstappen admits McLaren's 2 cars attack during the sprint in Austria meant he had to work for the victory, his teammate Sergio Perez not in the fight. Verstappen lined up on pole position at the Red Bull Ring ahead of Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, while his Red Bull teammate Perez was down in 8th place, having qualified over a second off the pace. Left alone at the front to handle McLaren's 2-pronged attack, Verstappen briefly lost the lead to Norris on lap 5 when the Briton made a daring lunge into turn 3, only for Verstappen to regain P1 at turn 4. Their squabble opened the door for Piastri to attack his teammate for second place before he too tried to challenge Verstappen for the lead. The reigning world champion held his nerve in the face of the McLaren pressure, easing his way out of DRS range to take the win by 4.6 seconds. Perez wasn't able to make up any positions and finished P8 where he was 17s down. Verstappen admitted McLaren's 2 cars meant he had to work hard for the win. It was a good first lap, I would say, but once the DRS opens, it is very hard to get out of it. Took a few laps, a few exciting battles as well, he said. But I think once we cleared the DRS, then I could do a bit more my own race, and then it looked a bit better. But you could see they have 2 cars, are pushing flat out trying to, of course, make it difficult for me. And we had to work for it in that race, so a few things to think about what we could do better for tomorrow, especially because it's going to be even longer races and harder on the tires. It's going to be quite interesting to see how that will evolve. He added, I need to have a look at the whole race. I was very busy with myself, so we have to look into the data about the others as well, and we'll see if we can do better tomorrow. Asked about the clipping he experienced on laps 4 and 5, Verstappen put that energy recovery issue down to his efforts to break out of DRS range of the McLarens. It's just because them, McLaren, in the DRS, so they use, of course, a bit less energy because naturally they spend less time on the street just catching up to me. And I think once they were out, Then I could go back to my normal management, and then everything was fine again. Verstappen's sprint victory, his third of this season, saw him extend his advantage at the top of the drivers' standings to 71 points over Norris. Thanks for watching the video. See you in the next one.